Hello and welcome to Chapter 10. We'll be discussing human resource management. Some of our learning objectives is to understand the importance of HR and describe some of the current issues in managing human resources. We'll talk about some of the legislation that historically had a huge effect on HR. We'll summarize 5 steps in human resource planning, and we'll discuss some methods and challenges of recruitment. We're going to outline the 6 steps in selecting employees and illustrate employee training and development methods. We're also going to trace 6 steps in appraising employee performance, and we'll summarize the objectives of employee compensation programs and evaluate pay systems and fringe benefits. We'll demonstrate how managers use scheduling plans to adapt to workers' needs and describe how employees can move through a company. Let's start with the basic definition of human resource management. It is the process of determining human resource needs and then recruiting, selecting, developing, motivating, evaluating, compensating, and scheduling employees to achieve organizational goals. Now, if it sounds like a lot, but that's because it is. As the figure shows, human resource management is more than hiring and firing personnel. All activities are designed to achieve organizational goals within the laws that affect human resource management. So, what type of personality would be great for HR? The ENFJ is one of the personality types that would be amazing in a human resources role. ENFJ stands for extroversion, intuition, feeling, and judging. When we filled out the MBTI earlier in the semester, you can identify which personality type you are and some of the roles that pertain to them throughout the rest of the semester. The intuition part of the ENFJ enables them to have deeper insight into people and situations, and they're also able to produce creative ways to solve problems. ENFJs are genuine, empathetic, and loyal, and they also can recognize potential in people and help them to develop talents and abilities. Some of the secrets or less known portions of human resource management is that they are traditionally short-staffed. They have, as we outlined in the previous slides, several responsibilities and components of great importance. They protect the company and the individual employees working for the company. Some of the benchmark laws that have had a great effect on human resource management include social legislation, such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Civil Rights Act of 1964 created Title VII, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Act, that prevents companies with more than 15 employees from discriminating based on sex, race, color, religion, or national origin. It also enabled affirmative action. Affirmative action is employment activities designed to right past wrongs by increasing opportunities for minorities and women. However, some affirmative action initiatives have resulted in reverse discrimination. Reverse discrimination is discrimination against traditional groups in hiring or promoting. The Civil Rights Act of 1991 also had a huge effect on human resource management. It governs sexual harassment, which is unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature that creates a hostile work environment. Sexual harassment law covers men, women, and foreign companies doing businesses in the U.S. Harassment. Harassment is behavior characterized by the making of unwelcome and inappropriate remarks or physical advances in the workplace or other professional or social situation. This means that it does not have to involve direct contact to be considered harassment. Do you believe that companies should train employees about how to behave acceptably on the job? There are other laws, including protecting employees with disability and protecting older employees. The Vocational Rehabilitation Act of 1973 extended protection to those with physical and mental disabilities. The Age Discrimination in Employment Act of 1967 outlawed employment practices that discriminate against people over 40 and older. The amendment also outlawed retirement by a certain age. Of course, there are certain occupational exceptions to forced retirement. For example, do you think pilots should be forced to retire at the age of 65? Do you think that there is an age that surpasses the ability to hold the office of the president? The Americans with Disabilities Act, it guarantees all U.S. workers have equal opportunity in employment. So what does this mean? This means individuals with disabilities should be provided quote unquote reasonable accommodations. In the photo on the right, we can see an individual with a disability has an issue going up the platform to get into the building. Do you think it would be a reasonable accommodation to provide a ramp in this instance? Or do you think that she should be barred from employment because she's not able to walk up the single step? Clearly, having a ramp would be a reasonable accommodation and would not be a significant cost factor for the employer to add. Accommodations are treating people according to their specific needs. Human resource management has many other effects of legislation on the discipline. HR managers need to constantly keep abreast of laws and court decisions in order to perform their jobs effectively. They must know the law and be able to act with legal rights for their employees. The alternative is risking costly court cases. As you may well know, there are new court cases and legislation which influence the human resource discipline almost daily. Some of the issues which are shown in the Society of Human Resource main page details issues with the current government shutdown, some of the developments regarding DEI, and benefits that are available to employees. As a review, what is human resource management? What did the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 achieve? What is the EEOC, and what is the intention of affirmative action? And what do accommodations mean in the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990? Moving on, let's discuss human resource planning and some of the steps involved. First, human resources needs to understand who all of the employees are in the organization and what their roles and responsibilities entail. Then they can prepare a job analysis for each role and compare compensation within the company to external analytics and external factors. From that point, they can assess future demand for the company and for human resources to support the individuals that work in the company. They need to assess the future labor supply within the area and the availability of those individuals to meet the needs of the company. Then they can begin to establish a strategic plan for hiring and employment. When constructing a job analysis, it's important to be able to detail the description of the duties of the job and the characteristics of the individual that will fulfill that role. This needs to be done for every role in the company. HR has the opportunity today to recruit people from different cultural and ethnic backgrounds. What do you think some of the advantages would be of having a multicultural workforce? Individuals from different backgrounds, different beliefs, and different value systems can come together to produce unique perspectives in the workforce. Some of the places human resources can obtain talent is either through external or internal resources. There are dozens of external resources available, both through the college and through third-party sites and even nonprofits. Internally, candidates can be found via transfer or promotion or recommendations from other employees. Once human resources finds the talent, they can proceed to selection, both going through the hiring process, and then once the individual is hired, begin orientation and initial training. Selection. Selection is the process of gathering information and deciding who should be hired under legal guidelines for the best interests of the individual and the organization. Selecting the right employees can be incredibly expensive to the company. The general selection process contains receiving applications and conducting initial and follow-up interviews. There may be different types of employment tests depending on the type of job and the industry and requirements. Then a background investigation is done once the candidate is chosen, and they may proceed with physical exams. Finally, establishing probationary periods is optional in some hiring processes. Many common mistakes are made that are super avoidable. If the employee does not follow directions on the application, it can automatically disqualify them. This can happen by leaving blanks or not including required attachments. There may be additional supplements that should be sent in after the original application, and the application needs to be submitted by a specific deadline. Most jobs require having a resume and a cover letter tailored to the specific company. Sometimes an applicant is completely not qualified or obviously overqualified for the job. Of course, it would be encouraged to apply for something that you mostly qualify for, but not something that is over and above your qualifications, and abilities. If employment gaps are not explained or are not explained in a credible way, then this can bar someone from consideration. Lastly, poor grammar is super avoidable in your resume and your cover letter. Make sure that you always have some type of check and have others read it to make sure that it's visible and easy to understand. Your online presence can also disqualify you from positions. For example, human resources at many companies have a rule that they check the individual's online presence prior to considering them for hiring. As we know, nowadays everyone is on social media of some kind. However, it's important to prevent yourself from posting provocative or inappropriate photos. Having photos of using or doing excessive drinking or being in environments where excessive drinking occurs. Any type of post that references a current or previous employer should be prohibited, and any discriminatory comments based on race, gender, religion, or other groups. It tends to have a negative tone, whether or not these are protected classes. There are different types of hiring that occurs depending on the needs of the specific company. Retailers often hire contingent workers during peak seasons such as the Christmas shopping season. What do you think an advantage to the company would be by hiring contingent workers? What advantages or disadvantages do you think the contingent worker would experience being hired for a short amount of time? Usually, contingent workers receive few benefits, if any, and may receive lower pay than full-time positions. The contingent work is also considered part of the gig economy. The presence of the gig economy is increasing, and many positions have been largely moved to contract roles as opposed to having full-time positions within companies. A contingent worker is one who does not have the expectation of regular full-time employment. To keep and retain and get the most out of the employees that you have hired, training and development is important. It can lead to higher retention rates, increased productivity, and greater job satisfaction. Training is a focus of the short-term skills, whereas development is a focus on long-term skills. Training and development are all attempts to improve productivity by increasing an employee's ability to perform. There are three steps: assessing the organizational needs and employee skills to determine training needs, then designing training activities to meet those needs, and lastly, evaluating the effectiveness of the training program. There are many different types of training and development opportunities in various types of companies. Orientation is usually the first training an employee receives and gives them an overview of the policies, practices, and objectives of the firm. On-the-job training is any workplace training that allows someone to mirror or shadow an individual to understand the work that is being done. There are apprenticeship programs, off-the-job training, online training, and vestibular training, which is in a simulation environment. It is also considered or called near-the-job training. For job simulation, for example, firefighters can learn how to deal with burning buildings while not getting into harm's way themselves. This allows them to understand the extent and the needs of their job so they'll be ready when an actual fire occurs. Are there other professions you can think of that could benefit from simulation training? Development for management can include on-the-job coaching, understudy positions, job rotation, which will prepare them for moving up the ladder, and off-the-job courses and training. Mentoring and networking are also great ways for managers to develop their skills, learn from other individuals, and get an understanding of what is new and upcoming in their professions. Mentoring is when an upper level employee guides a lower level employee by introducing them to the right people and helping them understand the process of moving up the ladder. Networking is establishing contacts within someone's own organization or other organizations that are similar in nature. Those relationships can be built throughout your life, and networking is a lifelong goal. Informal gatherings can be used for networking that align with the individual's company or vertical, or the specific segment that they're focusing on to understand competitors, to understand innovations in the market, and to meet other individuals and grow and learn from each other. However, even with all of these attempts, some employees still end up leaving the company. The pie chart shows different reasons why employees quit, and these characteristics are cataloged during the exit interview. Why do you think it is important for managers to understand why an employee would leave the company? Well, employment ending from a certain employee can mean a higher turnover for the company. And if enough employees leave, it can leave the company with a bad reputation. This is also very expensive to hire new employees, and the information that that employee has obtained is then lost. Engaging in employee performance appraisals can be one way to develop the employee, get feedback, and hopefully keep them from leaving the company eventually. The performance appraisal is an evaluation that measures employee performance against established standards in order to make decisions about promotions, compensation, training, and sometimes termination. It is important during the performance appraisal to communicate standards, to accurately evaluate performance, discuss the results of their performance with the employee, and to take corrective action when necessary. Some ways that performance appraisals are used are to help identify training needs and gaps in individuals' capabilities or knowledge. They're also used as a tool to quantify whether or not an individual needs a promotion. It recognizes individual achievements and evaluates the firm's hiring process to see if the talent is meeting the needs of the company. Performance appraisals can often have illogical errors. Some of the problems when reviewing employees is that they're um, they're not able to reach rational decisions or they have inaccurate comparisons in order to judge employees. One of these illogical conclusions comes from the contrast effect. This is when one employee is compared to another. This is visually displayed with the same size circle being represented in two different manners. As we can see, the circle on the right looks significantly larger because it is surrounded by much smaller circles. The circle on the left looks significantly smaller in comparison to the large circles around it. The contrast effect makes the same things feel different. In a previous company I was part of, our evaluation performance was performed using a Gaussian distribution or a bell curve, which involves comparing employees to each other to fit them into predefined categories. Only a number of employees could exceed expectations. Most of them should be able to meet expectations. And in each functional area, at least one person had to be classified as not meeting expectations, regardless of, as we're showing here, the contrast effect, where employees may be very similar, or there may be a high effectiveness of employees, but one which has slightly less utility than the others. Other performance appraisal mistakes include the halo horn effect. That is when some specific area is used to unfairly influence the overall performance evaluation. For example, not meeting expectation in one area might translate to the rest of the performance evaluation, because the manager only remembers the thing that the employee did wrong. In contrast, the halo effect is when there is a positive impression, which unfairly skews the view of the employee in the manager's eyes. Lastly, the similar to me effect happens when you give generosity to those who feel that are more like you. In employee compensation, there are different forms of pay systems which can govern specific companies. Often, corporations and larger companies use the Hay method, which is based on job grades, and there's a specific pay range for each job grade. Once an employee is promoted, their pay range jumps to the next higher on the Hay scale. Market-based pay structures are also used to compare the individuals relative to the market value of their job. This can be helpful in large or upcoming cities such as Austin, where the market is becomes incredibly inflated, and the jobs of the companies that have been long-standing in the city may or may not measure up. So having a market evaluation can actually raise employees' salaries and help the company to become more competitive. The company wants to be competitive from a pay standpoint to attract employees that the business needs. They need the employees to work efficiently and productively, and they want to keep employees at their company and reduce the number of employees that leave to go to competitors or may start their own firm. Providing pay that is relative to the market and is fair can also provide financial security for the employee through salary, wages, and through fringe benefits. Fringe benefits are benefits such as sick leave pay, vacation pay, pension plans, and health plans that represent additional compensation to employees above base wages. Sometimes companies will offer cafeteria-style fringe benefits, where the individual can choose from a multitude of programs and pick the ones that they value the most. Other types of fringe benefits can include memberships to exclusive clubs or facilities, um, special paid or unpaid sabbaticals, access or vouchers for daycare and elder care, and other medical and health benefits, legal counseling, or similar style benefits. Other indirect benefits are considered soft benefits. These are benefits that you have at the work site or for a limited period of time as part of being an employee. Childcare can be extremely expensive, especially if you want to have on-site childcare at your company. Some ways that companies have gone around having childcare centers would be offering discounts or vouchers for childcare programs, or referring to specific facilities where the employee can get a special rate. My generation is called the sandwich generation because we're having to take care of our parents and our children often at the same time. Roughly 31% of US households are providing some type of care to an elderly person. The costs are going up exponentially, especially with baby boomers aging at this period in time. So, how is pay structured? There are a variety of ways that you can compensate employees through pay. The main type of professional payment structure is through salary. Salary is a fixed compensation and is paid on a regular basis, which could be weekly, biweekly, monthly, or other terms. The salaried employees are paid for their employment and are exempt from overtime. That means that even if they work more than 40 hours a week, their compensation remains the same. Hourly wages are based on the number of hours worked or the number of days worked. This usually means that the employee needs to clock in and clock out, or there are other ways of recording or estimating their time. The federal minimum wage is $7.25 per hour, and top wages for hourly work can be $40 per hour or more for skilled craftspeople. Usually, hourly wages do not include benefits packages. Another less common way to perform pay is through piecework systems. Piecework is based on the number of items produced rather than by using a time structure. This creates incentives to work efficiently and productively. Commission plans are also offered sometimes in addition to salaries and sometimes instead of salaries. A commission plan is a pay based on a percentage of sales. This is usually given to salespeople in order to help drive their motivation to sell more. Other types of pay systems are profit sharing, gain sharing plans, and stock options. Other forms of compensation, which do not add more costs to the company, can be through flex time plans. This allows the employee to choose their own schedule and work a minimum number of required hours to help the company. That generally incorporates some range of core time. For example, all employees must work 8 to 5 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It also allows more flexibility to help with work-life demands. However, it won't work in all organizations. It's difficult for shift work and employees that have to work long hours or supervise individuals on the job. In addition to pay, having available time off can be an important asset to your employees. The chart shows vacation days for some countries, including the United States. The dark green area are legally protected vacation days within that country, and the light green area are national public holidays. As you can see, the United States is the only company on the chart that has no legally protected vacation days, and we only have 10 public holidays guaranteed during the year. Another way to provide incentive to employees is giving them the opportunity to work from home. Working from home may allow some flexibility to choose work hours, especially if the range is over multiple um, uh, time zones. Don't know why I couldn't remember that. However, it requires self-discipline to stay focused and to not become distracted. Do you think that you have the discipline to work from home? Working from home can have multiple benefits, but also pose a variety of challenges. The organization can have increased productivity because individuals can work from home while they may be mildly sick, and they experience higher job satisfaction. This can broaden the talent pool when individuals can work from all over the country or potentially all over the world and can have competitive pay systems and also have the premier talent needed by the company. For the individual, it can reduce or eliminate commute times. It can prevent the individual from having to hear about or take part in office politics. It allows a greater balance of work and family and can expand employment opportunities as well for individuals with disabilities. Some challenges of home-based work is that it may be more difficult to appraise job performance, especially if the manager is not involved in the day-to-day work of the employee. It also makes team participation more difficult when you don't have regular face-to-face interaction. For the individual, it can cause feelings of isolation and diminish their influence within the company, which might leave them overlooked for promotions or other job opportunities. There are a multitude of tools that can help you work from home. Some of the most common ones are Google Workspace, Zoom, Slack, Yammer, and so on. There are multiple collaboration tools for file sharing and to work on documents or participate in meetings simultaneously. Cutting down on worker commutes is no small reward. So many countries in the world have incredibly extensive commute hours, with New York and Los Angeles being some of the top commute times globally. Even with after all these benefits, sometimes employees must be terminated. Employment at will is limited in most states, and um, it prohibits terminating employees based on strictly on minority or being part of another protected group. The ADA bars discrimination in terminations. During COVID-19, managers had to terminate a great number of employees. Do you think that companies rehired these full-time workers as the economy improved? Why or why not? What alternatives do employers have? When employees are valued and they decide to leave the company, there is usually an exit interview involved. There is a period of offboarding where the employee is expected to give at least 2 weeks' notice, but can give much more in order to transfer knowledge and information onto the remaining employees or onto a new employee. At some rate, turnover is inevitable. Employees can be promoted or reassigned to other workstations. Employees can be terminated due to performance or economic situations, and sometimes employees retire. Great HR departments plan for these to make sure that adequate staff is available. That's all we have for Chapter 10.